Good evening, Illini fans. It's Austin Berkland of the Illini cast and part of the Armchair Illini network. And this is a halfway solo. It's going to be some guests sprinkled in throughout this experience who probably are outside at the tailgate lots. Thank you for joining us from Lot 31, the Research Park, or wherever you may be joining us. But I'm Austin Berkland of the Armchair Illini and Illini cast network. It's game day, folks. This is pretty incredible. This has been a long off season for the Illini football fans, but it's been a very short off season for fans of all things Illini because Illini basketball has been really busy with schedule announcements, transfer portal, international recruiting, prep recruiting, even this late into the summer. But we are at football season. It's a Thursday night, a little bit different. Brett likes to have the national stage as opposed to just a Saturday 11 a.m. start that's kind of get lost in the shuffle territory. But Thursday night, Big Ten Network, 8 p.m., really the only major contest that might pull away from Illini viewers would be the Colorado-North Dakota State game. And I think a lot of Big Ten fans are excited about what this Illini football team may be bringing because you have Luke Altmaier back, who has a firm offensive line around him. Because last year, that Kansas game, I think that spooked him for the rest of the year. And when you have a situation where a guy is spooked, the end of the season can be rough, and he's seeing ghosts in terms of pressure. He's seeing guys that are open that really aren't. He's seeing guys that aren't open that really are. It was really a brain messer for Luke Altmaier, and now it's a fresh start. You have Barry Lunny Jr., you have Zachary Franklin, J.C. Davis is coming in. You have Malik Elzy has another year of experience under his belt. This is a different Illini offense that we are going to be seeing tonight and the rest of the year against EIU. This is a game that Illinois should win. They should win by a lot of points. It's a 28-point spread, according to the last data that I've seen. And I really think this Illini team can make some noise this year. Are there going to be hiccups? Yes. We're not the elite team of a Michigan, of Ohio State, of an Oregon, but this is a bowl team. And here's some reasons why. You have EIU versus Illinois. That should be a win. Kansas next weekend is coming into Champaign. And I was at the game last year in Kansas, and there were some moments where it was very daunting for Luke Altmaier for the rest of this offense and the defense on third down, especially. We'll get to the defense here in a little bit, but I think bringing in this offense that was Zachary Franklin, and you have Terrence Brooks on the defensive side, you have a stalwart tackle in J.C. Davis as well. I think this is a game that can be won for the Illini. Kansas is ranked number 22 in the country. And if you look at ESPN's FPI, Kansas has a 69.6% chance of winning. That's not a huge spread from 50-50. So I think a lot of Illini fans and a lot of the nation at large are seeing this as a kind of gimme game for Kansas, but not seeing the progression that the Illini football team has taken this offseason and another year of experience for Aaron Henry on this defense. So you look at what this Illini team can be, that Kansas game can be a win. Then you have Central Michigan. That's on Peacock, Saturday, the September 14th. And I think that's a win. I think that's going to be similar to EIU game where you win by 28 plus and you can move on to the rest of the Big Ten slate. And then you go to the Big Ten slate. Nebraska in Lincoln. That's going to be a different kind of matchup with Dylan Raiola at quarterback. Matt Rule has built Nebraska into a kind of a sexy pick for the Big Ten playoff representative, one of them at least in the new 12-team format. Then you have Penn State. I think that could be the first opportunity for back-to-back losses for this Illini team. Then you look at the rest of the way. You have Purdue coming to Champaign, which I think Illinois will win that game. Purdue lost a lot of talent. Ryan Walters has a big rebuild job at his hands. Yes, he has Hudson Card at quarterback, but I firmly think that he is going to be needing a kind of a miracle for Purdue to have a successful season this year. Illinois has a returning head coach, a returning offensive coordinator, a returning defensive coordinator, and a returning quarterback. That's a recipe for success in the Big Ten, and Illinois has that. So I think Illinois will beat Purdue. So going through my total, I think that would be a 4-2 start for this Illini football team. Then you have the Michigan Wolverines coming into town to Champaign. Michigan isn't what Michigan was last year. Yes, that defense is still very, very good. But what is Sharon Moore? Is he the coach that's going to lead Michigan to the promised land again? Big shoes to fill with Jim Harbaugh. We don't know what the notice of allegations are going to be bringing for the Michigan Wolverines. This could be an opportunity for Illinois to really get a big upset on the national stage in Champaign. They've come close against Michigan a couple times, but I think this is an opportunity where Illinois can pull the upset against Michigan. Am I picking it? No. Is there an opportunity? Yes. So that is a 4-3 record for Illinois at this point. Then Oregon, I think that's a guaranteed loss going all the way to the West Coast to Autzen Stadium. And I think that will be a loss for the Illinois Fighting Illini. That's 4-4. I think there is a legit shot that Illinois can win the rest of these games. There will be a hiccup, of course, but Illinois versus Minnesota. Illinois has defeated Minnesota every single year of Brett Bielema's tenure here at Illinois. I don't think PJ Fleck is going to be walking out of Champaign with a victory against the Gophers. Then you have Michigan State against Illinois. Michigan State has a new coach. It's going to be late in the year. There could be some not so much hope for the Spartans at that point of the year, and I think Illinois can win that game. Illinois Rutgers. Rutgers is very, 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 very overrated, I think. I think there are some holes in this Rutgers team that aren't being talked about. They have been talked about as a dark horse of having a really great year. But until Rutgers proves it in a big-time way, it's very tough for me to think that they are going to be just waltzing through this quote-unquote easy schedule that Rutgers has. Yes, they avoid Penn State. Yes, they avoid Michigan. Yes, they avoid Ohio State. Yes, they avoid Oregon. But I still think Rutgers has some prove it in them. So I think that will be a victory. And then you have Illinois, Northwestern to end the year. And I think Illinois can win this game. Illinois is a team that should have some offensive firepower with Zachary Franklin and this running game. I haven't even mentioned Caden Fagan's name yet. He's going to be a big-time force for this offense. And then you have Aiden Lawfery as well. So I think this is going to be a situation where Illinois could win 7 to 8 games this year, optimistically. And if they do that, yes, they will not make the college football playoff. I realize that. I definitely think that this is a program, though, that gets to a solid-ish bowl game. Then you awake an NIL giant where Illinois basketball has shown that Illinois fans have money and they're willing to spend on success at the college basketball level. But if Brett Bielema and his staff give NIL donators a realistic shot at getting somewhere elevated, that's going to be so big for this Illinois football program. If you rattle off 7 or 8 wins in this newfangled Big Ten, that's showcasing a lot of prove it to these Illinois boosters, and the sky is the limit at that point. Then recruiting wise, you have a shot at some of the top 4-star and top 5-star talents in the state of Illinois. We have a awesome staff member who has a great connection to the state of Michigan, and that can be very powerful with some solid NIL dollars, some success on the football field. I just think that this could be an opportunity for Illinois, if they're successful this year, to really open up something. I don't know what. I know Josh Whitman has said that he thinks that Illinois could be in the college football playoff discussion at some point. He said they were a couple seasons ago, which they absolutely were, whenever they won 8 games and they lost to Mississippi State in the bowl game in Florida. But I think that Josh Whitman truly believes in Brett Bielema. He believes in this football program. And I just truly think that this could be a situation where Illinois football kind of rises up here. There are some major question marks, of course, with what this team is. I mean, you look positionally coming up. Tight end is a huge question mark. The defensive line is a huge question mark. You need a good defensive line to win in the Big Ten. I realize that. But I think those are some of the positions that are going to be lacking here for the Illini. I do think the defensive back position has elevated with the addition of Texas transfer Terrence Brooks. And I really think that Xavier Scott could be a good player for this Illini team. And I think Tyler Strain will grow and develop this year. So I think this Illinois defensive back crew was so young last year. You have a lot of experience built in because they all started and they all played so young in their careers, that this is a moment where those defensive backs can truly come back and become a better option. Plus, you have Aaron Henry as another year of responsibility here as the defensive coordinator, and I think he's going to scheme some things up differently than he did last year. And I look at the linebacker crew with Dylan Rosiak coming in, and then you have the outside linebackers who I think are going to be really good with Mason Murrigan, and he's going to be out with an injury, of course, but I think Seth Coleman and Gabe Jacobs can be really, really solid performers. Seth Coleman, a lot of expectations for him. He has an NFL-style body, but is he going to truly make it to that next level? Sonny Verma checking in from baggage claim. He will be joining us as soon as possible. We'll see what Chicago traffic is like at 4:42 p.m. But Sonny Verma, thank you for listening in to this EIU pregame hangout. Comment below if you have anything that you want to add to this discussion. This is kind of an open hangout. It's a tailgate for all of us as we begin the Illini football season. We may have some guests with Alex from Armchair Illini and Kirkland from Armchair Illini. And I think this is a fun time to be an Illini fan and to be a football fan as well. This is a new Big Ten. Do I like Oregon, USC, UCLA, and Washington coming into the fold of the Big Ten? Kind of. It leads to some awesome matchups where you're seeing Ohio State face Oregon. You're seeing Michigan face USC. But, I mean, this is going to be a really weird season in terms of what the travel looks like. Are these West Coast teams going to be able to handle such travel demands? That's going to be a huge issue, and to see what they are able to do with that. Let's run through the Big Ten slate. Tonight, we have EIU versus Illinois. That's 8 o'clock on Big Ten Network. Howard versus Rutgers at 5 on Big Ten Network. And then we have Minnesota versus North Carolina. Should get a good gauge of what the Buckeyes are. Not the Buckeyes, pardon me. The Gophers are tonight on Fox. Then Friday night action, which, come on. Can we not have college football on high school the game night? Let's make it through that. FAU versus Michigan State is on Friday at 6 p.m. on Big Ten Network. And then Western Michigan, the Broncos come in and take on the Wisconsin Badgers at 8 p.m. on Friday, August 30th. Then Saturday slate, we have Illinois State against Iowa, Big Ten Network at 11 a.m. Penn State versus West Virginia, UConn versus Maryland, Indiana State against Purdue, Akron at Ohio State, FIU at Indiana, UTEP and Nebraska, Miami of Ohio against Northwestern, Fresno State against Michigan, UCLA against Hawaii, and Weber State against Washington. And then Sunday, September 1st, we have a huge matchup. The USC Trojans taking on the LSU Tigers. Two great offenses, two great offensive minds. Defense will be optional in that game. That over-under is at 64.5. That just shows what kind of defenses you're going to see in this matchup. Illinois versus EIU, the line as of right now is 28.5 points with a FPI. Illinois has a 97.8 chance of winning. EIU at 2.2. You look at EIU's last 5 games. This was last season. They won 4 in a row after a loss to SEMO, 35-28. They beat Bryant. They beat Lindenwood. They beat Tennessee State. Then they beat Robert Morris University to end their year. They did not make the FCS playoffs. Illinois' last 5 matchups, they lost to Wisconsin 25-21, and then they beat Indiana and Minnesota back-to-back games. As you remember, that was the Paddock games. And then Paddock started the last 2 games, which I think Brett Bielema did a disservice to his own Illini football program by starting Paddock and not going back to Luke Altmaier. And they lost back-to-back games to Iowa and Northwestern. Iowa, it was a 15-13 loss. They really stuck in and had great. The Iowa Hawkeyes played some great defense toward the end of that game, and I think they needed Luke Altmaier's legs, and that just wasn't an option. Paddock is not mobile, and now he got released from the Atlanta Falcons. And then you have the Northwestern game, 45-43. A lot of boneheaded plays in that game, but that's kind of what you get from a team that was 5-7. You get a lot of boneheaded moments, and my goodness, last year, that is one thing. The pick to click tonight isn't a particular player. The pick to click tonight is to see if the mental maturity has increased from last year to this year. And I mean that in some facets like this. The offensive line miscommunicated a lot early on in the season last year. And that's where you had some of the issues with Luke Altmaier and the running game where they weren't able to get that going. You had some long third downs in there. If Illinois is able to mentally clean up some things on the offensive line, which I think they will with some more game time experience, you have J.C. Davis coming in, who was a first-team all-transfer member according to ESPN, and that was nationally. So you saw the Illini logo with the likes of some of those big-time transfers around the country. So are they going to be able to have better communication on that offensive line? I think so. Then you think about penalties. How many penalties did you see that were just backbreakers last year? I think if you are able to stop some of that those backbreakers on the penalty side, that's going to naturally help you. So we'll see if Aaron Henry and Brett Bielema and Barry Lunny Jr. are able to coach that out of some of these players who are, of course, young at the time last year. Then, defensively, third down and longs. I hope the scheme is a little bit better. I hope the mental miscues stop, because those things that happened last year, when it came to those moments, it pissed you off as a fan. I remember being at that Kansas football game in Lawrence, and I thought it was going to be a fun game. If Illinois lost by a couple points, it would have been okay. We're there, though. Lance Leipold just got the best of Brett Bielema here. There were moments in that game where it looked like Kansas had been playing in much bigger time environments, more impactful games than Illinois. And that just really grinded my gears defensively, because you did have Johnny Newton. You did have some great players on that defense, and they should not have been as bad as they were. When it was 3rd and 13, you were like, okay, we're going to get off the field. We're going to give Luke Altmaier the ball back. We're going to get within striking distance of this game. Might get to one possession for the second half, and no. First down. Then there was the final-ish drive of the Kansas Jayhawk offense on that first half, and you just allowed them to run around and then throw a deep ball. And that deep ball was completed. And then Kansas was in a big time position to blow the game open. And they did. At certain points, there were times where Illinois looked to be in the game. It reminded me of a fake rally that the Chicago Cubs have in the 8th and 9th inning sometimes, unlike last Cubs game against the Pirates, of course. But I digress. This Illinois football team needs to, and I mean needs to, play smarter football and at times tougher football. There were like Seth Coleman, perfect example. He needs to play like the size of the man that he is and the athleticism that he has. There were some moments where Seth Coleman was soft, and we need Seth Coleman to be Seth Coleman this year. And if that's the case, then I think that can be very, very helpful. Sonny said, I want to see the D-line get some push. If they can't do well against an FCS O-line, then we're in trouble. Yeah, I mean, honestly, these games do kind of tell a story in a way. Like preseason NFL football, you can't really say what a true team's record will be, but you can see how they do in terms of their size. So I think that's going to be a huge factor, as well as to just get a good little look at some of these players in the first teams against the EIU Panthers. Jason Ron, thank you for joining us. I hope you and Colton are coming to the game tonight. I know you guys are super Illini fans, and I appreciate you joining the podcast, Jason. He says, our entire secondary was horrible last year. We rewatched the Minnesota game today, and our secondary never turned their heads. That is basic football. Glad we have a new coach back there. Absolutely. I'm glad we have a new defensive back coach. I think the experience that the new defensive backs coach can help out Aaron Henry and really help this defense grow as a whole instead of really honing in on those defensive backs. Jason also said EIU's O-line isn't small either. Yeah, this is a EIU team that has some FCS playoff hopes, and this game could go a long way in finding that journey to a FCS playoff spot, because that Big South OVC isn't that phenomenal of a conference. So I think EIU can kind of weasel their way through that Big South OVC mega conference that they have at the FCS level. And I know they have some offensive weapons, so it's going to be fascinating to see if Illinois can just be the bigger person, be the bigger team, and win this game. So I think that's going to be a huge factor in this. Yeah, comment below if you have any comments on this Illini football matchup against EIU or anything major of this Illini football season at large. I'm thinking that Illinois is going to have 7 to 8 wins this year. I really am bullish on this team. Sonny, it'll be surprising for you to hear that because I know I'm the pessimist of this podcast, but I truly think that the schedule lines up for this team. You look at the new Big Ten members. It's not like we're playing every single great team in this Big Ten conference. Our protected games for the next few years are Purdue, number 1, and Northwestern. We get those 2 teams every single year for the time being. And that should be 2 wins. You pair that with 2 wins in the non-conference play. I know we have some tough ones coming up with the likes of Duke and Missouri coming up. But if Illinois is able to buy some games out, go to get a FCS opponent in there, similar to an EIU, maybe you play the Salukis, maybe you play the Redbirds, you win those 2 games alongside a MAC team, that's 4 wins. Then all you're doing in terms of the math exercise, you need to find 2 victories. And that could be against a Minnesota. That can be against an Iowa. That can be against an Indiana, a Michigan State. If you're able to get those 2 wins right there, that's 6 wins. And then you can weather some storms on years where you have a tougher schedule. Maybe there is a year where you have USC, Oregon, Ohio State, and Michigan all on the schedule. But again, you have Purdue and you have Northwestern on the schedule every single year. So that's the hope for the Illini fans here, is that the schedule does really help out. Jason back saying floor is 3-9, ceiling 6-6. I have a ticket at 4-8. I fear our defensive line depth and left tackle position if Davis gets hurt. I hope I'm wrong. Guessed 5-7 last year though, so that was pretty good. Nostradamus their pick, Jason last year at 5-7, and you nailed that right in the head. I'm sure you didn't think that the way they would get there would have happened with the way Paddock played against Minnesota and Indiana, but hey, 4-8 definitely is a possibility. If some of those players don't develop like I think they can, there absolutely is a way that Illinois can really disappoint the entire fan base with a 4-8 year and or a 3-9 year. Ceiling 6-6, I'd take it. I know I'm very high on this team, but if Illinois is just simply able to get a bowl game where there might be some other Big Ten teams that are along your same tier in terms of your organization, then that's a win. If you knock out like a Minnesota from being in bowl position, if they lose to North Carolina, if they have some struggles throughout this Big Ten season, Michigan State, same way, you can propel yourself tick by tick by tick to the upper echelon of the Big Ten. I don't know if we'll ever be at Ohio State level. The odds say we won't be. But if you can inch by inch your way to being where Iowa is as a program, to be where Wisconsin is as a program, to maybe get some of the elite talent occasionally like Nebraska has started to do, that is how a team like Illinois can propel itself in this new world of college football. Because then again, the businesses that support these NIL ventures and these wealthy individuals that have given to Illini basketball, because we're top 10 in NIL perception by other college basketball coaches. If we can get some of that into the college football program, my goodness, that's a different ball game. Yes, there's a lot more money floating around in college football than there is in college basketball. But if you're able to just tick by tick by tick, then suddenly you wake up one day and it could be 2027 and you're like, oh my gosh, we've been to 4 straight bowl games. We've sniffed a college football playoff. That's where you can start to get, it starts to become fun to be a fan of a program consistently. And I think that kind of thing is possible. Just get as many bites of the apple with some solid teams, and you're going to pull off some wins that you maybe shouldn't. Maybe you beat a Penn State. Maybe you beat an Oregon. Maybe you beat a Washington or a USC one year, and that completely changes the trajectory of a season. But you got to have that baseline of 4 to 5 wins at least, and then you can start to have fun. Moving on up in the world of college football, because if you're consistently at 3 wins, then NIL dollars are going to tank even more than what they were, and recruiting is going to become way more difficult. The only solace I would have if Brett can't turn this around in a big way, and if they do have a couple 3-win seasons or a 3-win season and a 4-win season, is that you are in the Big Ten, and you're going to be able to steal a coach who is in the ACC or in the Big 12, because you do have some Big Ten money. You do have the prestige of being in the Power 2, at least in the time being. And if you're in the Power 2, that's where the money is made. That's where you can really build a better program, because you don't want to be left out. You don't want to be a part of a situation where if Ohio State and some others want to move off and do their own thing, you don't want to be let out. I don't care how great the basketball program is. There is a shot that Illinois could be in a second-tier conference if football doesn't get their act together. So that's kind of what I'm looking for in terms of this upcoming stretch of Big Ten football and Illini football is, can Illinois keep up with the Joneses, or maybe not even the Joneses, maybe just keep up with your next door neighbor and like the Iowas of the world, like Wisconsin and the situation. Jason said, have to make a bowl this year. With next year's schedule, it will be a major hill to climb. Yes, let me check that schedule here for next season. Give me a second. Comment below if you have any other questions, by the way. All right, 2025 schedule is as follows. You lead off with Western Illinois, then you take on Duke in Durham. Western Michigan comes into town, then you play Maryland, Northwestern, Ohio State, Rutgers, USC, Indiana, Purdue, Washington, and Wisconsin. Again, you have Purdue as one of your steady opponents, as well as Northwestern. So that should give you an opportunity for 2 wins. You have Western Michigan. There's 3. Western Illinois, that's 4. Then we'll see what Duke is with Coach Elko leaving to Texas A&M. We'll see what kind of program he can build. Indiana is a better program with a better head coach and more national head coach. Washington with Jed Fish, he's a good program builder, so next year might be a better season for him. I think you can make a bowl game with next year's schedule, but it's just going to be that much more difficult because you have some teams that have years to grow each year. Unlike this year, where some of these opponents are going to be a little shell shocked because they're in a new conference or they have some new head coaches. So Purdue, that will be a Ryan Walters, another year of experience, more years to get some things in the transfer portal, and he's had some 4-star players commit to him a couple years ago that I know Illinois was fighting for him with. So they're going to have some more talent loaded up in the barrel for next year's team. USC, that's going to be a tough one, but they are coming to Champaign, which that is just going to be electric to see. Stephen Pearsall, which receiver do you expect to stand out today outside of Zachary Franklin? Thank you for joining us, Stephen, by the way. I feel like Malik Elzy is going to have a really good game simply because he is going to have a speed advantage more than some of these EIU players. And I think that you can have some fun over the top football here with Malik catching some balls from Luke Altmaier, and I think that'll be a great connection throughout the season. But today, I think it's going to be him having some fun out there and playing with the food that EIU brings. Alex Kapka Jones is my shock to click this year. Yes, if you read anything from Illini Inquirer, Jeremy Warner has been really high on Alex Kapka Jones, and so has the entire coaching staff of the Illini football team. So I think he could be a solid production receiver and be one of those trusty Luke Altmaier connection pieces. Because if that happens, then hey, that's great. If you have any further questions, I think we might wrap this up here in the next 10 minutes or so. Be sure to get your comments, concerns, thoughts, and predictions on this Illini football season, and I will respond to those. But looking at the 2024 schedule, once again, I'm going to go over that. EIU, Kansas, Central Michigan, Nebraska, Penn State, a bye week. Purdue, Michigan, Oregon, Minnesota, then another bye week. Michigan State, Rutgers, and Northwestern. And then the Big Ten Championship, which I don't think Illinois will be a part of since there is no Big Ten West. RIP Big Ten West, by the way. What a sad situation not having that to fall back on. But that's what the world of college football. Jason, what's your score prediction for tonight? I'm thinking 28-17. I think Illinois demolishes the EIU Panthers. I think it'll be a 35-10 game. I think that Illinois has the speed in certain positions, the athleticism in other positions, and I think the overall experience of Luke Altmaier, he's not going to be shell-shocked by this game. So I think he is going to come out firing. I think the offensive line is going to give him an assist. And I also think Caden Fagan is going to have an unbelievable game. That small town boy, who's a big boy, is going to be able to run right through this EIU defensive line. And I think he's going to have some fun as well. I think him and Malik are going to be the guys that are going to be like, hey, let's play with our food a little bit. Let's have some fun and let's gear up and get some confidence going for the Kansas Jayhawks. So, because Kansas, they're going to have some time to play with their food with Lindenwood. That's a huge mismatch on all sorts of levels. So I think Illinois will want to have some confidence going into the Kansas Jayhawks. So I think Illinois will win 35-10. Steven, he says 38-14. And I think that could be that's a good prediction as well. This has been the Illini Cast. This has been the EIU Pregame. Tune in tonight as me and Sonny will, and possibly the Armchair Guys, will be talking about this Illinois EIU game, and we'll talk about the other Big Ten results as well as maybe some major storylines if North Dakota State upsets the primetime Buffaloes. So, Sonny, almost a exact prediction as me, 34-10. So we're all on the same page here. I think Illini fans, I think Illinois will win, and it's just about how they look and what's kind of skill points and what kind of skill and excitement points they can get out of this matchup. But again, me and Sonny and the Armchair Guys will be here post game. Just give me a chance to Uber from Memorial Stadium to my hotel here in Champaign, and then we'll get firing off and we will react to what we see, the good and the bad. But thank you all for joining me. This will be lived on to prosperity to make fun of my predictions of this season. If Illinois inevitably wins 3 games, and I will hat tip to Jason Rom whenever that happens at the end of the year. But if I'm right, then hey, it'll be celebration time for all of us as Illinois would be winning 8 games and be set up very well in this new Big Ten. So I'm Austin Berkland. This is the Illini Cast from the Armchair Illini Network, and thank you.